To save James, I sacrificed my legs, shattering my dreams and forever losing the stage. At our wedding, his childhood friend, teary-eyed, announced she was expecting his child. James hesitated before embracing her, lost in their affection, while I stood there, feeling like a villain disrupting their love. Chapter 1. I was alone at the dessert shop, placing my order when James stormed in. "Are you out of your mind? Do you not understand your situation? You're disabled. You should inform me beforehand about anything, or what if something happens?" His face was livid as he berated me. I used to think his anger was out of concern and love, but after hearing the recording yesterday, I felt like I had finally woken up. "James, let's call off the engagement." I looked coldly at the man I had loved for nearly 10 years, feeling like I was seeing him for the first time. "You only want to marry me because you feel guilty about my legs. I don't need you to take responsibility anymore. James, let's end this." He looked at me as if I had said something unbelievable. "Emily, you're disabled now. If I don't want you, what will you do? You got hurt saving me. I won't abandon you." I sighed deeply, realizing we couldn't see eye to eye. I turned to the server. "Please pack my order to go." James continued to insist. "No matter what happens, I won't abandon you, Emily." I pulled my wheelchair free from his grip and left with my packed dessert. Chapter 2. This was the 10th year I had known James and the 6th year we had been together. Back then, I saved him, resulting in the permanent paralysis of my legs. He seemed to feel guilty and agreed to be with me, promising to take care of me for the rest of my life. For 6 years, I thought I had found true love, believing James would never abandon me. Until yesterday. Megan played a recording where I heard James say, "Mom, Emily ended up like this because of me. Even if I don't love her anymore, I can't abandon her. No matter what happens between Megan and me, it won't affect Emily marrying me." At that moment, my heart turned cold, and the James I had loved for 10 years was gone. Megan, with a victorious air, said, "Emily, stop clinging to James. He's only with you because you saved him. Otherwise, you mean nothing to him." I lowered my head in silence, unable to refute her. In everyone's eyes, James being with me was an act of charity towards a poor disabled person. But before the accident, I had an offer from a prestigious global dance school and was ready to compete internationally as a rising star. Fate has always been cruel. Chapter 3. I clumsily moved my wheelchair, memories of my first meeting with James flooding my mind. He wore a white shirt, smiling shyly as he extended a helping hand. It was then that I fell for him. When he had his accident, I didn't hesitate to push him out of harm's way. But my legs were permanently damaged. Facing the devastating news that I would never dance again, it was James who helped me out of the darkness, helping me accept my new reality. I thought our relationship was built on love, mutual support through life's storms. But now I realize it was just my one-sided affection, while he felt only responsibility. James caught up with me. "Emily, we're getting married next month. Stop this, okay?" He pleaded softly, but his face showed irritation and disgust. I knew he didn't want to waste time on me. To him, I was like a weed clinging to him. In his mind, I couldn't survive without him. "You don't need to do this. Saving you back then was my choice. You don't need to repay me with your life." I looked at him, bitterness welling up inside me. He interrupted me roughly. "Enough. I've been busy with the company. Stop bothering me. The wedding will go on as planned next month." With that, he left me, driving away alone. I stayed there, watching his retreating figure. See, the evidence of his lack of love for me was so clear. This wasn't the first time he had left me behind. I was foolish to only realize it now. Chapter 4. I pressed the button on my wheelchair thinking about how to get home. Suddenly, someone pushed my wheelchair from behind. A clear, youthful voice said, "Miss, let me take you home." I turned to see it was the server from the dessert shop. "Thank you, but it's not necessary. It's no trouble." I don't have anything else to do today. Just think of it as a walk. Where do you live? Seeing the sky darken, I nodded, fearing it would rain if I didn't get home soon. My home wasn't far from the dessert shop. By the time he pushed me home, it had started pouring. I handed him an umbrella. Take this. He smiled, his youthful face lighting up. Miss, let's exchange contacts so I can return the umbrella. Seeing my hesitation, he added, I can also inform you about any promotions at the dessert shop. Thinking I could repay him by visiting the shop more often, I agreed. Thank you, miss. I read his name softly. He nodded. Yes, miss, I'm Alex. If you need anything, just call me. I'll come as soon as I can. With that, he ran into the pouring rain. I watched him, shaking my head. Young people are so full of energy, like they're glowing. Chapter 5. My protest against the wedding had no effect. James still announced the wedding date. All the preparations proceeded as planned. James's company was preparing to go public, keeping him busy. He sent Megan to help me choose a wedding dress. I was uninterested, and Megan, pushing my wheelchair, was equally displeased. Emily, you can't marry James. He loves me. Yes, he loves you. You should find a way to cancel the wedding. Megan raised her voice. Emily, you're mocking me. She seemed angry but couldn't do much to me, a helpless person, so she pushed the wheelchair hard. The wheelchair went out of control, heading straight for a wall. I frantically pressed the buttons, but nothing worked. I closed my eyes, sighing inwardly. But the expected pain didn't come. A gentle voice asked, Are you okay? I opened my eyes to see Alex. He looked worried, holding me steady. I'm fine. What are you doing here? He explained quickly. I saw you outside and wanted to say hi. I didn't expect this to happen. Megan walked over quickly. Emily, you're shameless, clinging to James and now flirting with a boy. I was about to respond, but Alex spoke first. That jerk is the shameless one. Both were heated, arguing loudly, neither willing to back down. The bridal shop staff hurried over. Sir, miss, please calm down. Megan and Alex finally stopped. I looked at the pristine wedding dresses, feeling a wave of disgust. Alex, can you take me away? My wheelchair seems broken. He nodded, ignoring Megan's protests, and pushed me out. We hadn't reached the door when James arrived, sweating. Chapter 6. Emily, the company had some issues. How's the dress selection going? He noticed Alex. Who is he? I was exhausted. James, let's cancel the wedding. I won't go through with it. But he acted like he didn't hear. Stop being childish. I know you feel neglected, but I'll make time for you soon. I sighed deeply. Alex couldn't hold back. You're the jerk from the dessert shop, right? Didn't you hear she doesn't want to be with you? James sneered. If she doesn't stay with me, who will want her? She's disabled. I want her. Alex seemed determined. I looked at James, remembering the boy from my past. Back in high school, I was a new transfer student, focused only on dancing. But I somehow angered a classmate who isolated and bullied me. James entered my life then, helping me integrate and protecting me from bullying. He was like a gentle stream, soothing my heart, leading me out of the shadows. Falling for him seemed natural. But after I shielded him from the accident, everything changed. His kindness was out of guilt. Emily, who do you want to take you home? They both asked. I looked at them, feeling helpless. Alex, you can go. He looked down, surprised and reluctant. Okay, let me know if you need anything. James smugly pushed my wheelchair, taking me to the car. I stayed silent, organizing my thoughts. When he dropped me off, I asked, Have you thought about what I said? He hesitated. James, I'm serious. He avoided my gaze. Don't say silly things. We decided this 6 years ago. After my surgery, when I learned my legs were paralyzed, I was silent for days. James visited daily, taking care of me. He promised. No matter what, I'll marry you. Even if the world abandons you, I won't. I clung to his hand like a lifeline. But now I realize how foolish I was. Love is more than just responsibility. Chapter 7. James refused to cancel the wedding. I couldn't understand why he wanted to marry me if he loved Megan. Men are complicated creatures. Alex had been trying to sell me new desserts from his shop. Since I had trouble moving, he offered to deliver them. When he arrived, he brought several boxes of desserts and a lunchbox. Sweating, he called. Emily, help me out. I wheeled over, taking the items. Why so much? Since I'm here, I might as well bring more. He took out the lunchbox. My mom made chicken soup for you. I accepted it. Thank your mom for me. The soup was rich and flavorful, a taste of home I longed for. He blushed. If you like it, I'll bring more. I led him to the living room. Alex looked around curiously. Your place is neat. It must be hard to keep it clean alone. If you need help, just call me. I looked up, meeting his gentle gaze. To prevent accidents, my home was sparsely furnished. James always complained it lacked warmth. In that moment, I felt my heart race. I think I was falling for someone other than James. Chapter 8. When my parents heard about the wedding, they rushed back from abroad. Despite my insistence that the wedding wouldn't happen, they seemed set on James as their son-in-law. My mother was a strong-willed woman, always demanding excellence from me, pushing me to dance on the world stage. After my accident, she had another daughter to fulfill her dreams. My sister was smarter, more talented in dance than I ever was. I became a failure in their eyes. Emily, hurry up and marry James. Your father and I need to get back. I don't want to leave your sister alone. She spoke firmly. My father wanted to say something but stayed silent, looking at my legs. I knew they had given up on me. But I didn't want to marry someone who didn't love me. Mom, Dad, I don't want to marry James. They ignored me, my mother already on a video call. A young girl's voice whined. Mom, when are you coming back? I don't like being alone. Auntie's cooking isn't as good as yours. Sweetie, we'll be back soon. Just a few more days, and you'll see Mommy. I sat beside them, feeling like an outsider. James arrived soon after, having heard my parents were here. Sorry, I had some work. I'm late. My parents didn't mind, pulling him close. It's okay. We're grateful you're willing to marry Emily despite her condition. James said. Emily got hurt saving me. I won't abandon her. The scene was heartwarming, but my eyes stung with tears. They were the closest people to me, yet none cared about my wishes, using my life as a means to their self-satisfaction. Chapter 9. From the wedding preparations to the ceremony, I felt like a puppet on strings. At the wedding, wearing the white dress, a force stirred within me, urging me to flee. But as I nervously opened my phone contacts, I realized I had no one to call for help. I was pushed to the altar. The priest asked, Emily, do you take James to be your husband, for better or worse, in sickness and in health? I hesitated, unable to speak. But seeing the expectant eyes of the guests, I felt pressured to finish the ceremony. I resigned myself, about to say, Before I could, Megan arrived. She wore a white dress, capturing everyone's attention. James, I'm expecting. She looked tearfully at the man about to become my husband. At that moment, I felt a strange sense of relief. The wedding descended into chaos. James rushed forward, panicked. What are you saying? Go back! But Megan seemed determined, crying as she hugged him. James, will you abandon me and our child? James hesitated, then embraced her. Suddenly, I felt like the intruder in their love story. Amid the turmoil, a pair of hands gently took mine. Shall we go? It was Alex. His eyes shone with hope and desire. I grasped his hand, nodding firmly. He lifted me from the wheelchair, carrying me out of the wedding. As I tore off my veil and looked back at the stunned guests, I felt my soul break free, running wild and unrestrained. Chapter 10. Alex carried me away, boldly leaving the scene. It was my first time doing something so reckless and wild. Emily, are you crazy? How could you agree to marry that jerk? Alex was agitated. I covered his mouth. Stop. I don't want to hear it. He fell silent, then changed the subject. Is there anywhere you want to go? Now that we're free, let's go. I thought for a moment. Can you take me to Clearview High School? It was where my dreams were shattered. Alex borrowed a wheelchair and took me to the school. From the sports field to the classrooms, everything was unchanged. I looked around nostalgically. Alex, did you know? I was a ballet prodigy here. No one could dance better than me. It sounded arrogant, but I had won city, provincial, and national awards representing the school. I was a rising star in the dance world. Yes, I know. Alex said softly. You were amazing. I smiled. You've never seen me dance. How do you know? I have. Many times. He led me to the auditorium, pointing to the stage. You shone under the lights. I saw it many times. I was stunned. I had no memory of Alex in high school. He continued. You may not know me, but I always followed your steps. So no matter what, you always shine to me, like the sun. The auditorium was silent, and I could hear my heartbeat. Thump, thump. Don't say such things. I felt my face flush. Emily, you can't leave the stage. Stop running away. He looked at me with unwavering determination. After my accident, I had avoided rehabilitation, drifting aimlessly. But now, Alex had torn down my defenses, forcing me to face reality. Maybe it was time to stop hiding in the shadows. Chapter 11. Megan's pregnancy became the final straw that broke the back of my wedding plans with James. James' parents wanted to cancel our engagement and offered me financial compensation, including the car accident from 6 years ago. $1 million to sever all ties between me and James. But James seemed reluctant, hesitating while holding the contract his parents had sent. Emily, is there really no way to salvage this? His eyes were weary, and he was still wearing his wedding suit from that day. I pulled out the contract. Didn't you already make your choice at the wedding? Megan is carrying your child, so take good care of her and don't let her down. Unwilling to give up, he continued. Emily, what if we raise Megan's child together, as if it were your own? I promise I'll cut ties with her afterward. I paused in disbelief and stared at him. James, are you out of your mind? How can you say such a thing? But he persisted. Considering your current health, it's not suitable for you to have children. If you don't marry me, it might be hard for you to find someone else. We could just make do. Rage surged within me. The James I once knew was just a heartbreaker, causing pain but nothing more. Now, he seemed like an unscrupulous rogue devoid of any moral compass. How had the once gallant boy turned into this? I couldn't understand. The situation became tense until Alex arrived, scoffing. You may be willing to settle, but Emily isn't someone who just settles. Besides, she's not limited to choosing just you, I'm also in line. James was at a loss for words, stunned into silence. I quickly signed the contract and handed it to him. James, let's end this here. It took him a while to take the contract, his face full of desolation as he left. Chapter 12. After ending things with James, I used the money he gave me to enroll in the best rehabilitation center. But my parents were vehemently opposed to my decision. My mother scolded me with disappointment etched on her face. "Emily, when did you become so thoughtless? You didn't even discuss it with us before breaking off the engagement with James." Looking at the woman who gave birth to me, a chill ran through my heart. "Mom, he cheated. Another woman is pregnant with his child. Do you still want your daughter to jump into that fire pit?" She looked slightly embarrassed but still said, "What fire pit? It's not that dramatic. James treated you well, didn't he? Mom, I don't want to argue with you. Let's leave it at that." I sighed, feeling utterly exhausted. Ever since my leg became paralyzed, she no longer treated me as her daughter. I had been expecting too much. She wanted to say more but was interrupted by a call from my sister. I only heard snippets like "miss you" and "dance champion." Sure enough, after the call, my mother beamed and glanced at me. "Well, you're grown now, and I can't control you anymore. Your sister won another championship abroad. I need to go take care of her. You think about this yourself." She and my father left, closing the door behind them. I watched their retreating figures, just like years ago when they left in disappointment after learning my legs were paralyzed. I had just woken from anesthesia, unable to accept the reality of my condition, desperately trying to hold onto my mother's hand. But she looked at me with cold disappointment. "Emily, you've let me down. You'll never be on stage again." Then she hurriedly left with my father, leaving me alone in the hospital room. I never expected to be abandoned again after so many years. 6 years ago, James helped me out of the darkness. This time, I had to rely on myself. Chapter 13. Rehabilitation was a painful and seemingly endless journey. I fell countless times but always got back up. The only solace was Alex, who frequently brought treats from his shop to visit me. He was like a sweet taste in my struggle. Alex often joked, "When you win the national championship, the treats you ate will become bestsellers." I was surprised by his confidence in me. I didn't expect a shop assistant to be so concerned about the future of the dessert shop. He just smiled without saying a word. To my surprise, Megan asked to meet me. Her belly was already showing, but she looked very haggard. "Emily, could you go see James? Since you broke off the engagement, he's been drinking every day. I'm really worried," I scoffed. "Isn't this what you wanted? Now that I have nothing to do with him, isn't this what you both wanted? Regrets?" Megan touched her belly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I admit I took advantage of him when he was drunk. James didn't mean to betray you, Emily. I'm begging you, please go see him." I looked at her coldly, feeling no sympathy, only finding it laughable. They saw me as a helpless driftwood, using my weaknesses to attack me. But after pushing me away, they expected me to turn back and forgive? How ridiculous. "Megan, stop dreaming. It's impossible for me and James to have any connection again." She hung her head in silence. Alex arrived to pick me up. I didn't hesitate, controlling my wheelchair and leaving. Chapter 14. Alex brought more treats from the shop, holding several boxes. "Aren't you worried the owner will get mad at you for bringing these every day?" He mysteriously hushed me. "Don't worry, I sneak them out. He won't know." I rolled my eyes. "Next time, I'll go to the shop and pay for them. You shouldn't keep doing this. If you get caught, you won't have any face left." He handed me a piece of bread and pushed my wheelchair. "Don't worry, I paid for them. Just enjoy." We strolled down the bustling street, past the vendors. The falling maple leaves landed on us. I looked up and chatted with him. He smiled warmly, his eyes full of tenderness. Time seemed to stand still. For the first time since my paralysis, I felt at peace and calm. I had shut myself off from the world, but now I felt like I was part of it again, with Alex by my side. With his company, my rehabilitation went smoothly. The doctors said the progress was evident, and soon I could try walking again. Alex was thrilled and wanted me to taste his mother's home-cooked food. I thought it would be like the usual takeout meals. But after training, he took me directly to his home. As soon as the door opened, his parents greeted me warmly. His mother seemed very happy, guiding me to the dining table with a smile. "Alex told me you were coming. I didn't know what you'd like, so I made a bit of everything. Try it." The table was laden with dishes, clearly prepared with great care. Alex came over quickly. "Mom, you shouldn't make her eat right away. I wanted to show her my room first." His father chimed in. "You're a grown man. Can't you let your mother have her way?" Alex pouted, looking disgruntled. I could feel the harmonious family relationship, something I had always dreamed of but never had. His mother pushed me to the table. "Don't mind them. Let's eat." I nodded. At the table, the three of them bickered lightly, making the atmosphere relaxed. My tension slowly eased. "Emily, eat more. Look how thin you are," his father said kindly, putting food on my plate. His mother agreed. "Yes, Emily, eat up." Alex grumbled. "Mom, Dad, who is your real child here? You're so biased." They started to bicker again. I stared at the food on my plate, feeling a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Is this what a family feels like? Chapter 15. When Alex was taking me home, his mother insisted I visit more often. I held her hand. "I will, Mrs. Johnson. As long as you don't find me annoying." Alex quickly pushed me away, complaining. "I can't tell who your real child is anymore." The road was quiet, the streetlights casting dappled shadows. He chatted endlessly about his childhood. I listened quietly and suddenly said, "Alex, thank you." He fell silent for a moment, then said, "No need to thank me. Just be well." After that day, something changed between Alex and me. There was a magical aura around him that made me pay more attention to him. His daily visits to take me to my rehab sessions became the highlight of my day. "Alex, why are you so good to me?" I asked casually. He stopped walking and, unusually serious, said, "Emily, you might not remember me, but I've known you for a long time." I stared at him, puzzled. Before high school, I used to get into a lot of trouble, relying on my parents to bail me out. I didn't know what to do with my life until I met you, Emily. He looked deeply into my eyes. That was the first time I saw someone so dedicated and persistent shining on stage. I was moved. So I started following you, learned you were at Clearview High, and I began studying hard just to meet you. But then you had that accident, and I lost track of you. I stammered. "Alex. But now I've found you again, and I'm not letting go. Emily, will you give me a chance to be with you?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "But my legs." He interrupted. "That doesn't matter. I only care about your heart. Will you have me?" "Yes, I will." He smiled and hugged me. Two hearts nestled close together. It felt like tasting the sweetest candy in the world, sweetness spreading from my tongue to my soul. Chapter 16. Alex was different from James. He encouraged me and never saw my condition as a burden, nor did his parents. When they learned about our relationship, they comforted me, saying if Alex ever upset me, I should tell them and never feel wronged. Everything was getting better. During rehab, I was already able to walk slowly while holding onto the bars. The doctors said that with continued effort, I'd soon be able to walk on the ground. I was ready to leave and noticed Alex wasn't around. I received a text from him. Something came up at the shop. "Head home first. I'll come by later." A sense of unease crept into my mind, but I quickly reassured myself. "It's fine," I told myself. But as soon as I got outside, I saw James, looking disheveled and forlorn. He blocked my way. "Emily, I miss you so much." I wheeled back. "James, why are you here?" He stepped closer. I regret it. Emily, I shouldn't have abandoned you. Come back to me. I'll treat you well, I promise. I looked around, ready to call for help, but he covered my mouth. Emily, I love you. Let's leave together and start over. His expression was crazed as he dragged me away, and I was powerless to resist. Chapter 17. James drove like a madman, bringing me to a secluded villa. It was supposed to be our marital home. He touched my face, looking obsessed. Emily, no one will disturb us here. We can be together forever. I stared at him coldly, feeling nothing but disgust. The villa still had decorations from our wedding preparations, with red symbols everywhere and empty bottles scattered around. Megan was right about his drinking. I forced myself to stay calm. James, think about Megan. She's carrying your child. If you kidnap me, what about the baby? I promise I won't tell anyone if you let me go. He seemed momentarily confused but then snarled. The baby? It's gone. Emily, I would never betray you. I was shocked. James, are you insane? That was your child. He gently placed a veil on my head. Emily, forget about that. Our wedding isn't over yet. I looked at him, my body trembling. This villa was isolated, no one would notice anything happening here. I just hoped Alex would realize I was missing soon. James meticulously redecorated the villa, placing red symbols everywhere. The red seemed especially glaring now. He murmured, after the wedding, we'll be together forever. But I never expected him to start pouring gasoline around the villa. James! What are you doing? I screamed. He turned and smiled at me. Don't worry, Emily. It'll be over soon. I closed my eyes in despair. I thought today would be my last day. Suddenly, the door was smashed open. James, have you lost your mind? Alex rushed in and punched him. My heart settled a bit and I yelled, Alex, forget him. The villa is covered in gasoline. We need to leave. He stopped and came to my side. But James, now completely unhinged, grabbed a knife and came at us. From somewhere deep within, I found the strength to stand and pushed Alex away. James missed and shouted, Emily, did you forget? I was there for you when you were paralyzed. It was me. It was me. I laughed bitterly. James, but you were the one who abandoned me. He covered his ears, unwilling to listen. Alex looked at me, stunned. Emily, you're standing. I leaned on him. Let's go. He didn't hesitate, carrying me out. James, laughing maniacally, lit the gasoline. We had just exited the villa when flames began to engulf it. Through the fire, I could see a shadow inside, sobbing. I sighed and called the fire department. Chapter 18. Luckily, the firefighters arrived in time and James survived, though severely burned. His mental state was unstable, and he was sent to a hospital. He would likely spend the rest of his life there. I had always thought I would hate him, but seeing him now, so pitiful and lost, I no longer felt that way. It was like a weight had lifted. Some things are better let go, especially when there are so many other important people in my life. Hand in hand with Alex, we walked down a path covered with fallen leaves. He suddenly stopped, looking guilty. Emily, there's something I've been hiding from you. I picked a leaf off my shoulder, pretending to be angry. What is it? Actually, the dessert shop is mine. Meeting you was planned. I hid my smile, acting upset. You tricked me. He lowered his head. And Megan's pregnancy, I arranged for her to be at the wedding. I counted on my fingers. You kept so many secrets from me. As punishment, you'll wash the dishes, clean the floors, wipe the windows, and do the shopping. He looked up, realizing he'd been fooled, and kissed me. Leaves fell around us, landing on our heads and clothes. I closed my eyes, savoring the kiss. Chapter 19. Alex's perspective. From a young age, my life was smooth sailing. I had everything anyone could want. Loving parents, good looks, top grades. But things that come too easily lose their value. I often sat alone, wondering about my life's direction. Lonely and aimless, I wasted away. Until I met a girl. One day, I was idly sitting in one of our family's shops when she came in and bought a strawberry soufflé. But as she ate, she began to cry. I couldn't understand. Soufflé is sweet, why would it make her cry? I started paying attention to her. She was a dance student at the neighboring high school, the only one in the city with a shot at international competitions. She was resilient, powerful, and faced everything with courage. On stage, she danced with the lights, like a butterfly soaring toward the sky. In that moment, I began to despise myself, a lazy shadow without a future. From then on, I worked hard, hoping to meet her properly. But by the time I got into her high school, she had disappeared. I couldn't find her anywhere. Years later, I saw her again in one of our shops. But she was in a wheelchair, her eyes devoid of light, just like mine had been. I felt both pain and relief, pain for her suffering, relief that I found her. It wasn't too late. I would help her out of the darkness, just as she inspired me.